She didn't just steal their money, she was the one person in the world the law trusted to protect it. The courts gave her that power. Their dead grandmother gave her that responsibility. And she used it, quietly, patiently, deliberately, to make sure her own daughters would never see a single penny of what they were owed. This isn't a story about a criminal. It's a story about a mother, and that's what makes it so hard to look away. It started with grief. In 2013, a grandmother named Margaret passed away. She left behind two granddaughters. We'll call them Sophie and Claire. Sophie was 15. Claire was 12. They were old enough to understand that grandma was gone, too young to understand what came next. Margaret had planned for them. She set aside £50,000, a significant sum, locked in a trust fund. The money wasn't to be touched until each girl turned 25. It was Margaret's way of giving them a real start in life. A down payment, a cushion, proof that someone had believed in their future even after she was gone. Two people were appointed to protect that trust. Two people the law would hold responsible for every penny. One was the girl's own mother. We'll call her Karen. The other was their great-grandfather, an old man in his 80s at the time, a retired postal worker who, by all accounts, would have done anything Karen asked of him. Sophie and Claire didn't worry about the money. Why would they? It was in their mother's hands. There was one thing nobody talked about openly. When Margaret's estate was divided, Karen felt she had received less than her daughters. The judge would later say Karen was so annoyed her daughters had been left more than her. That quiet resentment, nobody named it, nobody watched it. It sat there, invisible, like a gas leak with no smell. Karen went home, smiled at her daughters, and waited. The trust was placed in a basic savings account, a Barclays everyday saver. No lock, no restrictions, instant access for anyone holding a card. Both Karen and the great-grandfather had cards. Within months, the withdrawals began. Slowly at first, small amounts, then larger ones. A £15,000 cash withdrawal, a direct transfer of £2,300 into Karen's personal account. Charges from high street stores, clothes shops, everyday retailers, all justified, Karen would later claim, as purchases for her daughters. She built a garden pub in her backyard. She went on vacations. She and her live-in partner, a window cleaner, improved their home together. His mortgage got paid. Their lifestyle got upgraded. Sophie and Claire saw the garden pub. They saw the holidays. They didn't connect it to the account with their names on it. Why would they? She was their mother. The manipulation here was architectural. Karen didn't have to lie to them every day. She didn't have to gaslight them at dinner or create scenes. She simply never mentioned the account again and used her structural position as trustee as a wall between her daughters and the truth. That's the coldest kind of control. Not explosive, just silence and access. Meanwhile, their great-grandfather did what Karen needed. He took out money. He signed what she needed him to sign. He told himself he was helping his daughter through a hard time, her divorce, her mental health, the difficulty of raising two girls alone. He was nearly 90 years old. He trusted his daughter the way her daughters trusted her. He had no idea he was being used as a buffer. And the account drained. Year after year, the girls grew up. They finished school. They started their lives. The trust fund sat quietly in the background, like a promise nobody intended to keep. In 2018, Sophie was ready to buy a home. She and her partner had been saving. They were close, but not quite there. She remembered the inheritance. She reached out to Karen to ask about accessing some of it early, just enough to help with the deposit on their childhood home. Karen denied it existed. Then she blocked Sophie's number. That moment, a mother blocking her adult daughter who simply asked about money her dead grandmother had left her, that was the crack that split everything open. Sophie and Claire contacted their father. He called the police. Solicitors launched a civil investigation. The account was traced. The withdrawals were mapped. Every pound was accounted for. It was gone. All of it. When Karen was questioned, she changed her story. First, she knew nothing about the withdrawals. Then she said her father had handled it all on his own, that he had been posting the girls' inheritance to them in cash envelopes, through their own letterboxes, in installments, on his own initiative to ease the tension between mother and daughters. The great-grandfather took the stand himself at trial. He backed the story. He said he'd done it to save his daughter's sanity. He said the girls had been harassing Karen for money. He said he had withdrawn the funds and delivered them himself out of love for his daughter. The court didn't believe him. There was no evidence, no envelopes, no deposits, no record of any cash arriving in the hands of two young women who had been told and genuinely believed their inheritance was safely waiting for them. The prosecutor called the old man a stooge. The judge was less gentle with Karen. He found her blatant and brazen. He found her thoroughly dishonest. He found that she had recruited her elderly father, exploited his loyalty to her, and used him as cover while she laundered her daughter's money through her partner's mortgage. Then he sentenced her. Karen received 30 months in prison. Before she was taken down, she kissed her father on the cheek. The great-grandfather received a 12-month suspended sentence and was ordered to repay £6,000. Karen was ordered to repay the full $50,000, by then worth approximately $65,000 due to inflation, within 3 months, or serve an additional 6 months. The money was gone, absorbed into a house, into a lifestyle, into a relationship her daughters had never been part of. Sophie's sister Claire later told reporters that her mother had shown no remorse, not at the verdict, not at sentencing, not after. A daughter said publicly that she had to watch her mother get sentenced to prison, and that her mother looked through her like she wasn't there. This case is not about a monster, it's about a pattern. Karen never needed to threaten her daughters. She never needed to manipulate them face to face. Her power over the money came from a formal role, trustee, that made her invisible to scrutiny. She didn't steal from strangers. She stole from children who had been legally placed in her care. That's what psychologists call institutional betrayal, when the very structure designed to protect you becomes the mechanism of harm. The second tactic was the great-grandfather. Karen didn't act alone. She constructed a human shield. She recruited someone with less power, more loyalty, and enough love to lie for her in a courtroom. When manipulators can't avoid accountability, they distribute it. They make sure someone else is standing in front of them when the light comes on. And when Sophie finally asked the question that could expose everything, Karen's response was immediate. Block. Deny. Flip the story. That's Denny, attack, reverse victim, and offender. She didn't just say, "I didn't steal." She made Sophie the aggressor, the harassing daughter who wouldn't leave her mother alone. 3 things to watch for in your own life. If someone holds a formal role over your finances, trustee, executor, business partner, verify independently, regularly, and without apology. Love doesn't protect money. Documentation does. If someone is always in the middle when things go wrong, always the interpreter, always the go-between, ask who put them there. Manipulators don't operate alone. They build human buffers. And if the moment you ask a simple, reasonable question, someone immediately cuts off communication, that silence is an answer, the most important one you'll ever get. Margaret spent her final years believing she had given her granddaughters a future. She trusted the right person with the wrong character. Sophie and Claire grew up, survived, and told the truth in a courtroom, in front of cameras, and on record. The money may be gone, but so is the person who took it. The question worth sitting with is this: how many people in your life hold power over something you can't see? And have you ever thought to look? If any of that felt familiar, you're not alone. Subscribe, because the manipulation tactics that destroy lives are almost never the ones people warn you about.